guys, it's Jen. This is another episode of Reframing Me, and I'm your host, Dr. Jennifer Brubaker. Welcome back to the show. If you are new, I am so glad that you're here. I've realized that I've somehow, without noticing it, I've gotten into the habit of kind of just starting to talk, starting to ramble. So I need to break that habit for sure. So this is Reframing Me, and it's a space where moms who are raising teenagers can come to rediscover who they are as women beyond the frame of motherhood. And hopefully we can pick up some helpful hints and some information that will help to understand our teens and to make our families run more smoothly on the daily. Ooh, that was good, right? Okay, so I'm going to need to write that down and I'm going to need to say it every episode because I was realizing that, if I have someone new, like a new listener, they could come on and listen and turn it on and be like, what even is this show? I mean, in hindsight, I would have totally taken points off for that if I was grading me. So yes, maybe I should incorporate that too. I am a communication studies professor, and I hope to bring you a better understanding of your family and its functioning through using family communication theory as our foundation. Okay, so maybe I need to get that to all flow a little bit better before I start using it for each episode, but I guess it's a start. So this episode, this topic, it all turned out to be a bit longer than I thought it would be. I guess it's just such a great topic and I have so many amazing things to say about it. So I know everyone, at least everyone, I guess, per the podcast literature. That's such a dorky, I'm an academic way to say that. But apparently, listeners like shorter episodes. 20 minutes apparently is the goal. I guess our attention spans are short. And I get that. I do. I personally, when I listen to podcasts, I like 20 to 30 minutes when I listen, or that's like what I'll listen to at a time. And so if it's like 50 minutes to over an hour, I'll either save it for when I'm doing laundry because that tends to take me longer, or I will totally listen in bits and pieces. So today I am breaking this one into a two-parter. So yay, that's fun, right? Anyway, you know how they have those memes that are basically some version of I am, and then they show some like totally dated item or product or place or something that we know or we can understand because we are our age, but someone younger doesn't. But basically, and I am this old. Does that make sense? Like it'll be a picture of a toy or like the crazy, dangerous merry-go-round on the blacktop playground from our elementary schools, or like a picture of a pencil and a cassette tape, which obviously we know how those items are connected, but someone like our kids, they would have no idea. But basically, this is how old I am. Well, I have one of those to start today because I have mentioned it to my kids or my students a number of times over the years. But to set the stage, I graduated from Ohio State in 1998. I didn't have a computer when I was in college. There was one girl in my sorority house who she had one, and I can remember various people using it if we didn't want to go to the library to type something. Okay. But in my family, we always had a computer at home pretty much as long as I can remember, like way back into the 80s. My dad, he also had one of those early car phones, like in a bag. And I was one of, if not maybe even the first girl in my sorority to have a cell phone. Now, I say this to show that we were pretty innovative and technologically advanced. But I do distinctly remember getting the book, and I quote, it was called The Internet for Dummies. Okay, that book, and the book, How to Use the Internet. I got those at the library, and I remember going and taking them to the computer lab at Ohio State. And I totally, in my life, I swear, I remember nothing. But I can picture it for some reason. I can remember taking those books to the computer lab and trying to, and I kid you not, but trying to figure out how to get on this internet thing. Honest to God, I needed 2 books to learn how to basically click on a browser and type in the address. But it honestly required not 1, but 2 books for me to do this. And I mean, granted, I was still an undergrad at the time. I would guess 1997. If I had to put a year on it, I'd say 1997. But I did eventually go on to get a master's and a PhD. So I am pretty bright, but it was just all so foreign, right? I mean, I know I'm not the only one who found it all to be overwhelming. And I was like, what, 21 maybe? So I can imagine how someone who was like our age now, but back then, how they might have felt. It might even have been frightening to them. Well, that is kind of what we're going to have our conversation about today. I want to have a conversation about something that is becoming more and more prevalent in our lives and in our kids' lives for sure. And something that in order to guide them, we need to understand too. And it's actually not as scary as it sometimes sounds, and something that can be really helpful to all of us. And that is AI. I mean, wow, what a dramatic buildup, right? I had such a huge buildup to that. And really, I will obviously include what we're talking about in the title and in the episode description. So y'all already knew where I was going with that going in. But yes, thank you for letting me go with my dramatic entrance. And we are talking today about AI, ChatGPT, the robots who are taking over. I'm just kidding. They're not taking over, but that doesn't mean we don't need to understand them, especially to help our kids because they're the first generation to have all of this. And just like the parents of millennials didn't understand social media in a way to teach them how to use it responsibly, or how boomers didn't understand cell phones and texting to help us, I guess that was probably true too. But I see so many of my kids' friends and my students, our students, they are just getting themselves in trouble because they are not properly using the technology. I hate it. And I know that there are so many ways that we can use it to make our lives easier and to make our lives better. So we're going to talk about all of that today. All right. I am not I am not a ChatGPT or an AI expert. I mean, there are lots of them out there. I know many of my colleagues, even who are super involved in studying and using AI, and I am not that. But I can definitely hold my own. And I have been trying to also help and guide my own kids around it for these last few years. So instead of thinking that it is scary or it's overwhelming, we are going to do our best to talk about and to reframe our conversation around AI. We'll talk about how we can use it to enhance our lives, and I'll try to help you to learn a bit more about how to guide your teens to use it responsibly and ethically. Because for the second time this week, I have heard someone say, I just don't understand AI. And honestly, we need to. AI is here and it's not going anywhere. So we might as well learn to use it, right? This can be our own AI for Dummies or How to Use AI or whatever book was I had back for the internet in 1997. Because I mean, the narrative around AI has been kind of terrifying, right? Robots taking over our jobs, controlling our lives, and becoming the villains in sci fi movies that we've all seen. And for many of us, especially of those of us in our 40s and beyond, new technology, it can feel overwhelming and intimidating. So it's natural to resist what we don't understand. But I want us to look at it from a different perspective. What if AI isn't here to replace us? It's here to assist us. Think of it like a calculator. Remember how when we were young, we were not allowed to use calculators? Like somehow people thought it would ruin math skills forever. But calculators, they don't eliminate the need to understand math. They just make the process faster and more efficient. And I think that the same applies to AI. You input your knowledge and your creativity, and it enhances your output, which saves you time and energy. But the key thing is that it still needs you. You need to be involved. And I think that that's the mark that people are sometimes missing with AI. So here's a quick example. Okay, so the other day, a student asked me about her grade. I tallied up her points using a calculator and I totally messed it up. The numbers showed she had over 110% in the class. Obviously, impossible. But I didn't just accept the result and be like, you have like 111% or whatever it was. I didn't accept the result. I recalculated it and I caught my error. That's how I see AI. It's a tool to help us, but we are still responsible for the product and we are still in control. So let's start with what is AI and what is ChatGPT. Okay. So artificial intelligence, or AI, it refers to systems or machines that simulate human intelligence in order to perform tasks or maybe solve problems or learn from data that exists. And ChatGPT is a specific AI model that was developed by OpenAI, and it focuses on like natural language processing. So that means it can generate text, it can answer questions, it can help with writing, all sorts of things. It's like having a conversation with a very knowledgeable assistant. However, it's also important for us to know what AI like ChatGPT is versus what it isn't. Okay, so what is it? It's a tool for enhancing our productivity, and it does this by generating ideas and summarizing information or maybe brainstorming different solutions. It's an assistant, so it can help us with tasks that are repetitive or challenging. So things like creating outlines or answering questions. It's a resource for us to learn new skills or to improve our existing skills, maybe things like coding or writing or planning. But it isn't everything. And it definitely isn't everything that people think it is. So, okay, what isn't it? Well, isn't it isn't a replacement for human thought or human creativity. Like it provides suggestions, but it cannot understand the context of something or particular nuances like a real live person would. It is definitely not always accurate, and it is definitely not always unbiased. So let's remember that AI, it's trained on data. So that means that it can reflect any errors or biases that might exist in that training material, that data that it is trained on. It's not a substitute for ethical decision making. How we choose to use AI defines its impact on us. Now, I guess the AI for dummies part, because I need this laid out for me, but there are actually different AI tools that we can use that have different strengths. So ChatGPT, the one that we kind of default to, ChatGPT was created by OpenAI. And it's a really good one for generating conversational text, for assisting with writing, for brainstorming ideas. It's great for doing tasks like creating outlines or learning new skills or drafting up an idea or a document. But beyond ChatGPT, OpenAI other tools or models might be for things like image generation, or I think that's DALL-E, and for code specific tasks like Codex is for code specific tasks. And the Google has its own AI, Gemini. Okay. And it focuses on like integrating more natural language, understanding into its search engines and to its apps. And so it makes it ideal for doing research or for retrieving information quickly. And of course, Microsoft couldn't miss out. So it has its own AI tools, and those are integrated with apps like Word and Excel. And these tools are designed to enhance your productivity. So they're pretty work specific, like they generate reports or they can automate workflows. But I think it's important for us to understand these differences among different tools so that we can choose the best one for our needs, whether we need it for creative writing or for learning a new skill or for managing daily tasks. So now what? Well, we have got a basic idea of what it is, what it isn't. So, how can or how should we harness this awesome but overwhelming technology to make our lives better or easier? How about we start with our teens? Okay, so we're going to start with our teens because they are the ones who are growing up in a world where tools like ChatGPT can be incredibly powerful. But as Spidey says, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So, how can we teach our teens to use AI as a tool for learning and growth and creativity, and to do it without crossing any ethical lines or just as bad, even becoming overly dependent on it? Well, first, like we just did, it is important for them to understand what ChatGPT is and what it is not. And so, one of the best ways to do that is to explore it together with your teen. Like, sit down with them and ask ChatGPT some questions. Let them see how it works. Let them see where it excels and where it might even fall short. You can explain to them that while AI can provide lots of great information and ideas, it is not perfect. It is trained on a wide range of data, and that means that it sometimes reflects the incorrect data. And often the accuracy is lacking about the facts. Things will seem totally credible, but ultimately they're wrong, and it can't really differentiate between factual information and fiction. And then it also often creates imaginary information. So, like, the data is this jumble of all sorts of stuff that may seem right, especially if you don't have like a foundation in the topic to fall back on. But just because it seems right doesn't mean it is right. And so this is where critical thinking comes in. We want our kids to be curious, but also to double check the information they get and think about it critically. So, like, imagine your teen is researching a science project on renewable energy. They might ask ChatGPT to explain how solar panels work. And while ChatGPT provides a great overview, they do need and remind them to cross check the details with an actual reliable source, like a scientific journal or a trusted educational website. So I tell my kids it's a really great jumping off point, but it is no way a final anything. So, like with schoolwork, because this is where the temptation can be strong to just like go ahead and let AI do all of the heavy lifting, right? But the reality is, yes, ChatGPT can be fantastic homework helper. Absolutely. But it's not meant to do the work for them. So I like tell my kids to use it maybe to summarize concepts or to explain something in easier to understand terms or in clearer terms, or give them a brainstormed list of ideas or show them how you would work through a problem, or even get an example of how to structure an outline of an essay or of a project. But it's super important that then they take the next step, which is putting things into their own words, their own ideas, and truly understand what it is that they're learning. So, like, they might ask ChatGPT, what were the main causes of the Civil War? Totally fine. Or when they get an essay question about, on a study guide or whatever, they might ask ChatGPT to outline an essay about the primary causes of the Civil War for them to study. Awesome. Then they can go through their notes or through their readings or do research and have a skeleton there to follow. Like I said, a jumping off point. Or they might attach a document and ask for a clear or concise explanation or a summary of it to help them in studying. Great. Summaries or explanations are awesome. But where they can run into problems is using it to do the actual work for them. Like if they input the teacher's prompt and say, write a paper about the Civil War following the prompt. Now, if they submit that, there you go. There is a line that is being crossed. Or when they ask it to create a reference list for a paper on the Civil War. No, not good. Don't do that. So I think a key difference is using it to make ChatGPT a part of the learning process and not a shortcut around the learning process. And the reality is, we as teachers, we have all been doing this for long enough that we know what students produce and what they do not produce. You read enough papers, and trust me, you know when something is just off. And all it takes is a little bit of research of our own, and we can usually figure it out. I mean, some professors and teachers I know are totally anti ChatGPT, and their policies and their punishments reflect that. And so your kids would obviously be best just not to mess with that at all. I, however, am one who is more on the side of use it, don't abuse it, that kind of thing. Use it to help you to the path, but not to carry you down it, I guess. It can be a great tool for helping students to improve their writing. So they can ask it for grammar checks or style suggestions, or like I mentioned, even use it to create an outline if they're feeling stuck. They then can take that outline and run with it and add their own voice and perspective and research. Maybe they need to write a short story for an English class. They could ask ChatGPT for some help brainstorming characters to add or plot ideas. So it could suggest something like writing a story about a teenager who invents a time travel app. Awesome. Great idea. Yay, ChatGPT. You are so smart. As a total aside, just like with Alexa, or Siri. I gotta whisper those. They're all listening. Do you hear her? She answered me. No, Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. See, we disturb them. I am always, but thank you anyway. I am always super polite and thankful to them. And like, oh, that is such a great idea. Or I love this every time I use any of this technology because honestly, I feel really rude not to be nice. I don't want the robots to hate me, which I realize says a lot more about me. But I mean, if nothing else, if they do end up taking over, I want them to like me. But anyway, yes, after your teenagers, back to your kids, after they get their ideas from the robot, who now thinks that they're super polite, which I also can't help but wonder if they'll do better work for me if they like me, right? Like maybe they'll try harder if they're like, well, she's really nice. I'm going to do my best work for her. I don't know, but I just don't really want to risk it, y'all. But from there, then they can go in, your teen, not the robot, but they can take the outline or the plot idea or whatever it was, and they can add their own unique voice and research or their imagination, and then they develop the story. And also, beyond school, they can also use ChatGPT to learn new skills. So maybe they want to code, or they want some prompts for creative writing, or they want to teach themselves to juggle or to play poker, or whatever it is that they want to learn. It's like having a personal tutor there, or even life skills, because ChatGPT can actually help us develop some important life skills. So, like, they can use it for time management. They might say, help me create a schedule to study for my math test covering 4 chapters, and it's next Friday, and I still need to have time for football practice after school from 4 to 6, or whatever. Or they can get help drafting a polite email to a teacher asking for their help with something, or brainstorming how to have a possibly sketchy conversation with a friend. All right, so here's an example. Maybe you're a college student. Maybe they had a disagreement with their roommate, because I hear that one all the time from moms. They could ask ChatGPT for suggestions how to start the conversation. Like, I really value our friendship, and I know that we both want a comfortable living environment. So let's talk about what happened the other day. ChatGPT can give them the confidence to figure out how to take that first step towards fixing or at least dealing with the problem. They can even use it for self-reflection, asking ChatGPT for journaling prompts or for strategies to work through personal challenges. So, like, they might ask, what are 3 things I can do to handle stress better during final exams? I mean, it's kind of jokey, but honestly, it's kind of not. Because I saw a tweet that was like, I can't afford therapy, so I started using ChatGPT as my therapist, and now I'm never going back to therapy. It's like, and while I'm not recommending ChatGPT in place of therapy, I mean, my best friend is a therapist, so I'm a therapy fan, but that doesn't mean there aren't ways to use it as a tool to help manage something that comes up, or like for a journal prompt. I mean, obviously, Jenna Zen is the best resource for your journal prompts, but let's just say that you are a journaling champ and you have exhausted all of the Jenna Zen prompts. Well, then maybe ChatGPT can be your backup resource for me until the next episode drops. Okay, so this is all amazing, right? ChatGPT, AI, it all sounds awesome. Why is this even a problem? Well, obviously, there is the less than ethical ways that our teens may be using it to fabricate work that isn't theirs, which beyond ethics has problems in that A, they're not actually learning anything if they use it, and B, it is quite possibly full of inaccuracies. But beyond that, there's also the issue of balance. Just like anything that cuts corners or makes life simpler, it is easy to get overly dependent on AI. And so it's our job to help our kids to see it as a tool, a powerful one, yes, but it is still just a tool. And to help them realize that real learning and actual growth come from doing the hard work, comes from making mistakes and from actually figuring things out on their own. So, like I said, we should encourage them to use AI as a jumping off point, not an end point. And very importantly, we need to remind them that there are some skills like emotional intelligence and empathy and the ability to build strong relationships. And those things, they can't come from a machine. The robots, they know a lot, but they're definitely not empaths. They can give you ideas of how to communicate with a friend, but sadly, robots don't actually have friends. I don't want Alexa to hear. And she's right here, obviously, and listening. I know she probably doesn't have feelings, so maybe she doesn't mind. But anyway, those types of things are the real life things with real life people. So even though ChatGPT can help come up with an apology, only the human part can actually deliver it sincerely and with empathy in person. But they're teenagers. Just like so many things, they may not grasp this on their own. So, like schoolwork and media content and social media and everything else, which is why we're so exam exhausted, right? But it is our job as their parents to stay involved, to keep the conversation open, to ask them how they're using ChatGPT and what they're learning from it. And if we notice that they're leaning just a bit too heavily on it or using it in ways that are ethically sketch, we need to step in and have a conversation, just like anytime we see an issue. It's the parenting part of all of this. And of course, we need to set some boundaries. So maybe it's no AI during tests or no using ChatGPT for assignments unless they're using it to double check their work with other sources or whatever boundaries you think are appropriate. Okay, so hopefully we all now have a bit of a better understanding of AI so that we can help our kids to use it more responsibly and helpfully because it is an amazing resource. It is just used often wrong. That's not how you say that, right? It's oftenly used wrong, right? Anyway, okay, so obviously I've talked for long enough about this. I can no longer form sentences properly. So we will come back for part 2, where we can continue talking about AI, but we will talk about us and how we can use it to help our daily lives and even to help us to manifest the lives of our dreams. Thank you so much for being here today and always. I appreciate every single one of you. And I would really love if you could share the show or this episode with a friend. Maybe take a couple minutes to give the show a 5-star rating, write a glowing review of it and of me. Give me a follow on the socials. We're reframing me on Instagram and TikTok, and reframing me on Facebook. And until next time, be well and communicate.